Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're stepping into a territory that is somehow even more unsettling than ghosts, demons, or monsters. Because this time, the horror we're talking about is completely real. No special effects, no fictional villains, no legends from centuries ago. Just genuine events that happen to real people, in places you might have walked past, driven past, or even lived near. And as scary as paranormal videos are, sometimes the true stories, the ones backed by police reports, eyewitness accounts, and newspaper headlines, are the ones that stay with you long after you turn off your screen. These stories don't rely on imagination. They rely on the terrifying truth that sometimes the world is much stranger, darker, and more unpredictable than we want to believe. So buckle up, because today we're exploring real-life events that will make you question your surroundings, double-check your doors, and maybe take a second look at the shadows in your room tonight. Let's begin with a story from Japan, a place known for quiet streets, polite neighbors, and some of the most disturbing horror stories ever documented. In the year 2000, a man living alone noticed something strange happening in his apartment. His food kept disappearing. Tiny things at first, drinks a little lower than he remembered, snacks missing from cupboards, leftovers reduced suspiciously. At first, he thought he was simply forgetting things. Maybe he ate something late at night and didn't remember. Maybe he miscounted. But eventually, the missing food became too obvious to ignore. So he decided to install cameras in his home. He expected to catch a burglar, someone slipping in through a window, maybe a neighbor stealing food. What he saw instead was the stuff of nightmares. The next day, he watched the footage, and there, in the middle of the night, a woman crawled out of the top cupboard of his home. She stretched her limbs, climbed down quietly, walked around the apartment, and ate his food before slipping back into the cupboard as if she were simply returning to bed. She had been living inside his home, without him knowing. When the police arrived, they found her curled up in the small upper compartment, lying perfectly still in darkness, waiting for him to leave again. She had been there for nearly a year. Now let's move to a story so shocking that even veteran investigators were disturbed by it. In the early 2000s, a man named Armin Bywest posted a message on an online forum. Not just any forum, but a place frequented by people with incredibly dark fantasies. In his message, he wrote that he was looking for a young, fit man between 18 and 25 willing to be killed and eaten. Yes, you heard that right. At first, multiple people replied, only to realize they couldn't go through with it. But eventually, someone named Bernd answered the message and agreed to meet Armin in person. What followed was a series of events so horrific that I won't describe every detail, but let's just say the entire encounter was filmed, and Armin carried out exactly what he advertised. It wasn't until he went online looking for his next victim that authorities finally caught him. He's now serving life in prison, and the case remains one of the darkest examples of how real human stories can be far more terrifying than anything a movie could come up with. From brutal crime, we move to psychological horror, the story of June and Jennifer Gibbons, the silent twins. Born in the UK to Caribbean parents, the twins developed a bond so strong that they barely interacted with anyone else. They created their own language, shut out the world, and moved in perfect synchrony. But their connection became toxic. They spiraled into petty crimes, arson, and behavioral issues that led authorities to commit them to Broadmoor Hospital, one of the most notorious psychiatric institutions in the country. Doctors said they had never seen a psychological link so intense. Over time, the twins came to believe that only one of them could survive in the outside world. And shortly after their release, Jennifer suddenly collapsed and died from acute myocarditis, a condition with no clear cause. June, now without her sister, began speaking normally, interacting with others, and living a relatively stable life. To this day, no one knows what really happened, or why Jennifer's death occurred at that exact moment. Moving into digital age horror, we have the story of a woman named Chelsea from Toronto. One night, she and her boyfriend were relaxing in bed, watching movies and enjoying a quiet evening. The next day, she logged onto her Facebook account and found a message from a stranger, someone she should not have been able to receive messages from based on her privacy settings. The message was titled, "Really Cute Couple." When she opened it, her stomach dropped. The stranger had sent photos of her and her boyfriend from the night before, taken from inside their bedroom as they watched their movies. The account disappeared shortly after, and investigators were unable to identify the sender. To this day, no one knows who was watching, how they got in, or how long they had been observing them. Speaking of unwanted watchers, there's a photograph taken in 2015 by a couple driving past a cemetery late at night. They saw someone climbing over the gate, a clown. Not a cheerful clown at a birthday party. A dark, pale-faced figure standing alone among the gravestones, waving slowly with a stiff, unnatural gesture. When they looped back to capture the moment, the clown turned away and walked calmly into the darkness between the graves. Police found nothing unusual the next day, and no one ever figured out who the clown was or what he was doing there. He didn't vandalize anything. He didn't attack anyone. He was just there. But our next story involves something even more disturbing than a clown. In the late 1990s, journalist Brian Bethel shared an encounter that became one of the most widely discussed paranormal stories of its time. He was sitting in his car writing a check when suddenly 2 children approached his window, boys around 10 or 12. Before they said a word, he felt overwhelming dread. They asked him for a ride home to get money for a movie. They insisted they didn't have a gun. They insisted they weren't dangerous. But something was off. When Brian finally forced himself to look at them, he realized their eyes were completely black. No whites, no iris, just blackness. As he tried to drag away, one of the boys tapped on the glass and said, "We can't come in unless you let us." The story of the black-eyed kids is now one of the most famous modern urban legends, but Brian maintains to this day that what he experienced was real. From the supernatural, we return to one of the most haunted objects in museum history, Robert the Doll. Gifted to a boy named Gene Otto in 1904, Robert quickly became known for more than just his sailor outfit and button eyes. Neighbors reported seeing him move from window to window. Gene's parents heard him speaking to the doll, and hearing another voice respond. Furniture toppled. Doors slammed. New families who moved into the house claimed Robert attempted to attack them. Today, he sits behind glass in a Florida museum. People who take photos of him without asking for permission often report experiencing car accidents, health issues, and streaks of bad luck shortly afterward. Letters apologizing to Robert are pinned around his display case. Next is the story of H.H. Holmes, America's first documented serial killer. Holmes built what many now refer to as the murder castle, a labyrinth of hallways, trapdoors, staircases that led nowhere, and rooms specially designed for torture. Some were airtight gas chambers, others were soundproof. Photographers checked into the hotel during the Chicago World's Fair, expecting rest and comfort. Instead, they encountered one of the darkest human minds ever recorded. Holmes disposed of bodies in furnaces, acid baths, and hidden chutes. The hotel was engineered not for hospitality, but for horror. Equally disturbing is the real-life monster who inspired movies like Psycho and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Ed Gein. After years of living under the emotional control of his fanatically religious mother, Gein developed an obsession with women's bodies. He dug up freshly buried corpses, skinned them, and used the parts to make clothing, lampshades, bowls, and masks. When police finally arrested him, they discovered a scene so gruesome that photographs were sealed for decades. And finally, we arrive at the tragic case of Elisa Lam. In 2013, Elisa was staying at the Cecil Hotel in Los Angeles, a building with a dark history of crime and death. She called her parents every day until one day she didn't. When police released security footage of her in an elevator, behaving erratically, hiding, gesturing at something unseen in the hallway, the internet exploded with theories. Days later, her body was found in the hotel's rooftop water tank after guests complained of black foul-tasting water. No one knows how she got onto the locked roof, how she entered the tank, or how the heavy lid was closed afterwards. Some believe it was an accident. Some believe she was murdered. Others think something else entirely was involved. These stories, strange, tragic, disturbing, and unbelievable, prove that reality can be far more terrifying than fiction. Sometimes danger comes from the outside world, sometimes from inside the human mind, and sometimes from mysteries we still can't explain. If you enjoyed exploring these real-life horrors, make sure you subscribe. There are countless more stories waiting. Dark histories, chilling events, and mysteries that refuse to stay buried. Thanks for watching, and sleep well, if you can.